And we are live. Look at that.
Wow, it works.
It works.
Technology.
Should we cut it right now and say that was
Clip what we're at.
that was a success?
Facebook live.
Good morning, everybody. Cory Raven here with Darryl Sjerven from our office. Darryl joined our office in 2010 when we opened. Part of the
Olympic expansion.
The Olympic expansion. Part of our top team, Darryl and Carl. You guys, 4 out of our 6 years, have been top team in the office.
Wow.
And so, I wanted to get you in here to do this Facebook.
I want to know what happened the other 2 years. But, okay, sorry.
I wanted to get you in here for a couple reasons. I know, like, and respect you enough that I thought you'd be game to be my guinea pig for my first session of this Ask an Expert
Truly
series.
willing to be tested on.
So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And second is, I wanted to talk a bit about the market. I think the market's been changing. I think we all have felt that. I shared with you last week, the real estate board talked about a stat that 50% of the current realtors in the Vancouver board have not been through anything other than an up market.
Right.
So I think, not only in this office, but out there in real estate in general, we've got a lot of agents that have seen nothing but some pretty blistery sellers markets. And you've been through different times than that. So I wanted to know if you've got anything you can share with the crowd in, what's it like to work in a normal, balanced, regular market?
I've never sold real estate any other place in Vancouver, so I wouldn't know. No. I think I'm approaching 15 years now. And so we've seen a couple of different things. I was really fortunate. I mean, my 15 years, my first year was 2001. And 2001, things were just starting to lift off and go into another zone of mania. Yep. And I don't know if the stat still holds true, but I recall at the time, the stat was the mortality rate for realtors was 90% don't make it 7 years.
And not knowing the specifics, I would say that it's likely very close to the same today.
Yeah, I would think so. And my theory on that is 7 years is how long your line of credit and your credit cards will hold up for you, for a lot of people. You can do a lot of slow, gradual damage to yourself, and you can also do that even in a busy market because cash flow keeps you from seeing what you're doing with your money and where you're blowing it and things like that, right? So I can totally imagine that there's a barrier of getting past that 5-year mark and that 7-year mark. I know I breathed a huge sigh of relief when I got to 8 years. Somehow I thought I'd gotten my union card. And
made it.
I was golden, baby. And that's just not the case. But the reality is that we do have these cycles. There are people that believe in those 7-year cycles too, coincidentally, right? And we do go through those times periodically, and I think that's where it really tests your willingness to what sacrifices are you prepared to make? How are you prepared to prioritize your time, your money, your efforts, and things like that? And I've been fortunate in that when it's been quieter has actually been some of my better times.
Well, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you about this. So let's play a hypothetical game.
Okay. I'm
an agent. Let's say I got in the business 5 years ago. I am used to really busy open houses where if I can meet one potential buyer, I feel like I'm lucky because it's such madness.
Right.
I lose with buyers more often than I win because of the multiple offer situation. So
you have to sell each person a house 5 times.
Yeah,
because they're in on the 5th.
And not only that, but manage the emotional roller coaster of these poor people that
the
are losing
expectations and for sure the heartbreak.
You have somebody who looks at a home over $1 million, makes that okay, fine, we're in, we want it, and they don't get that home.
Absolutely.
Here, so let's say I'm that agent. I've been through that. I haven't been through having a listing for more than 30 days.
And a 5-year cycle is a long time. Like if you think back at your life 5 years ago, that seems forever ago. So if you've been living in that world for 5 years, you can be of the impression that this will never end.
Well, we have from time to time at this office done these 30-day habit building things where, for 30 days you give up something or add something to your life with the idea that if you do something once for 30 days, it creates a habit.
Yep.
So having 5 years of this market, you're exactly right. It can feel very normal, very
Absolutely.
like this is what the real world is. So what do I do as that agent? I've been in it for 5 years. I'm feeling this shift. I'm calling buyers. They're maybe not calling me back as quick. They're humming and hawing a little bit. They've gone from losing out on multiple offer after multiple offer to suddenly they can have it if they want it, and that feels weird.
Right.
They're like, why does anyone else want this
Absolutely.
place?
Those people that are like, all I want to do is find a place that doesn't have a multiple offer on it, right? And then when you find one, the first reaction is, what's wrong with it? Why aren't there people swarming all over it? And is the market
human nature
going where? Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Two months ago, there was
Absolutely.
17 people. I was told by the listing agent that we were the 18th best offer.
Yeah.
Where did those other 17 people go, and why don't they want this house?
Yeah.
So what do I do as an agent if no, that's a bit too broad. How do I speak with my buyers and manage that more effectively? And I know there's no magic pill for it. It's just open communication,
Right.
letting them know what's going on. But how do I better communicate in this changing market, knowing that it's no longer about managing them about the sorry you didn't get the home.
Right.
It's about do we believe in the market? Are we buying in this current market? And if so, is this the right house for you?
Right. Okay. Well, I've got a theory, and the numbers won't be an even a perfect split. But my theory is 25% of people will never buy, no matter how good the market is, no matter what it is. They're always going to be, it's too hot, or the market's cold, or whatever.
Makes sense.
Right? There's 50% that are, they swing back and forth according to whatever the Vancouver Sun does that day, and then 25%, they're always going to buy regardless. Right? So you can't do anything about the 25 that's not going to. I mean, you might be able to, but it's a waste of your resources, your time, and your energy on it, right? I'm not here to make decisions for people, so I can't decide for them to buy a place.
Makes sense.
So the 25, they're at the other end of the spectrum, they're going to do it anyways. The 50% in the middle, that's who we're talking about, and they're being affected by, they go to work and they hear, what are you buying right now? Right? Just like they were affected by, how come you're not buying right now? Right? That they pick up the paper each day, and they're probably riding a pretty dynamic roller coaster, shall we say, of what are the headlines today in the paper.
Yeah.
And maybe they're in, they're out, they're in, they're out emotionally. I think that our job is to suck it up, buttercup. Like, our job is to be, I always used to say, be like the Alain Vigneault, the old coach of the Canucks. Because the Canucks would be on a winning streak, and here he was. And the Canucks would be on a losing streak, and they'd be in the ditch, and people would be screaming for heads, and here he was. Right? So, our job is to be that way, in the sense that our job isn't to be, hurrah, once more into the breach, over the top, right? And I try not to get carried away when people have exciting, positive moments, but I also try not to get carried away when there's negative moments either, because it's not the end of the world.
Right.
As my wife likes to tell me when I'm dieting, it's not the last supper, right? Like, you can pass this. And this isn't the last wave that we're ever going to be on.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not the last time that we're not going into the ditch to stay there permanently. We're never going to hit the peak and keep peaking continuously forever. It doesn't happen. It's a dynamic industry, and it goes up and down. And our job is to be relatively neutral throughout the whole thing, because that's what gives us the presence of mind and emotion to help people make solid decisions. I always tell people, it's not my job to be as excited as you. It's not my job to be as stressed as you. I've been here 100 times, 1,000 times.
Right.
I can't take the roller coaster with you. I need to help you make calm, cool decisions. And at a time like this, a calm, cool decision is, this is a great time to buy. If I'm not in the market yet, this is an awesome time to buy.
Right.
If I'm already in the market, well, all boats float the same. Maybe my own personal place isn't worth as much money, but I'm not paying as much for the place I'm about to buy. If I'm moving up, this is actually to my advantage. Because if all properties went down, just as a random number, 5%, 5% on the bigger property is more than 5% on my own. So it's a great time to move up, and you don't have to deal with the 17 other offers.
Well, that was one of the biggest things that we saw in the peak of the when we saw the numbers of sales and the percentage of listings that were selling. When we got, this spring, let's use it as an example, one of the objections that agents were hearing with their sellers is, I want to sell and I want to buy over here, but I can't sell first because I don't know what I'm going to end up with. Because every house has the 17 offers. So in this market, if I'm that person and that's my mentality, it is a much better time.
Absolutely. Because people always bemoan that busy market. People are always like, oh, it's too crazy. But the reality is at least in that busy market, you can go out and buy a place, and on Monday morning put a sign in your front yard. Right. And you know that you're going to sell and your kids are going to have a place to live. Yeah. It's a little bit scarier now in that sense, particularly if you say, for example, you're a family. That's a little bit scarier, but absolutely.
Given that this is the first time I've done Facebook Live, I think I've put that camera a bit too far away because I see some things on the screen, so we might have some questions from people.
Okay.
I'm not ignoring you on purpose, I just can't read them from here. He is, I'm not. But, okay, so you mentioned that during slower times was, ironically or whatever, times that you did the best or did very well.
Well, I think for me personally, it's a willingness to have the hard conversations. Okay, I mean, we have had a nice little run of, I think that chair would be better over there. We should just underprice this and we'll blow it up, right? Some of those things have been really easy. Perhaps you've had a client that just would not listen to reason on what their property was worth, and they wanted to try a higher number. Well, it took longer, but the market eventually came to you. And they had the opportunity to say, see, I was right. It only took 8 months, but we sold it at my number, right? But I mean, we have that. Now we don't have that opportunity. That buyers aren't 6 months deep. We don't keep getting showings every day, week after week after week after week. Right. Which actually was a little bit different in this last rush. We didn't have the kind of never-ending buyers. We did get a couple of good solid weeks, and then sort of showings really tapered off. Yeah. Whereas before it was months and months of that, right? But I think now more than ever, you have to manage their expectations, and B, you have to tell them, I'm sorry, Timmy's got to clean his room. I'm sorry, your yard needs some shaping up. I'm sorry, we got to talk about numbers, and maybe you give something a try, and if you see that you're not on the right track, you got to have that conversation sooner. Right. And not everybody wants to hear it, and sometimes that can feel a little bit even early, right? But you want to keep that momentum. The momentum doesn't carry you for very long right now. So, you've got to be willing to have the hard conversations early, which is why I say never list relatives' property.
Yeah, it's very tough to have those conversations.
Right?
With
Yeah,
those people.
exactly. If you can't have that conversation with somebody, if you can't tell your mother-in-law, I'm sorry, you need to clean, I'm sorry, your place doesn't present very well, I'm sorry, if you can't have that conversation with your mother, then you can't really accurately or properly represent her, so you shouldn't.
It's a very valid point.
Yeah.
So, if you're in
and I'm brutally honest, so that's why that's where I meant to go with that. Is being brutally honest. That's what you have to be. You have to be honest with people, and you have to have those hard conversations. And sometimes you have to be prepared to walk away from a listing that they're not willing to do what it takes, whether it be economically or appearance-wise or whatever. You got to be willing to walk away from those a little bit, and that can be hard at a downtime.
Well, for sure, especially if we're going back to that example of the agent who has been in the business for a relatively short amount of time. Those leads are gold.
Absolutely.
If I've got someone who wants to buy
if you're not making a lot of money, if the market is slower and you're not making a lot of money, and you don't have the money to waste on photos, floor plan, a flyer, whatever it is you're going to do, you don't have the time to waste spinning your wheels on somebody that thinks their place is worth $200,000 more than what it was at the peak of the market. Right. You don't have the resources to pour into that when you could actually be going out and looking for something else that could bring you some money today.
So sort of like the example that I think
The opportunity cost, right?
Yeah, and I think sort of like the example that you gave about the family, which you may have been saying slightly in jest, but really you have to decide both for you and the client, am I able and willing to do the job it takes to get them to where they need to go, whether it's buying or selling.
Exactly.
And if you either can't or unwilling to get there, or if they can't or are unwilling to do what they need to do to get you there, whether it be pricing or getting their home ready for sale or whatever it is, you need to really be careful and not just say it's business.
Well, are you selling houses or are you selling lottery tickets?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, and the reality is they're selling houses. We're selling time. I don't have a house to sell. Well, I do, but I'm not selling it. But what I have is time and expertise. And if I'm putting it into a dry well over here that's not going to show some results, that time is gone. The time I'm spending here with you, it's gone. I can't sell a house right now, right? No, but it's a limited resource. It's a finite resource. Right. So if I put it all in there, there's an opportunity cost if I can't put it in someplace else. If you get into a market that's slower and for a longer period of time, and you're carrying listings for a longer period of time, that takes money. That takes resources. There's an office to be paid. Yeah. There's expenses with each thing. There's the cost of running around. There's the cost of sell. There's all these costs, and it's a business, and you have to make sure that you've got a product that will sell at a price point that will sell.
So quickly here, because your time is valuable, and I want to make sure that we don't go too over. I appreciate you being here today to do this. You're in the office, and not only are you a top producer here at the office, but without trying to blow too much smoke, you're one of the most engaged agents. You're always willing to help out. I see you talking to people, other top producers, rookies, whatever it might be. And
if you want to be a better tennis player, play with better tennis players.
So what do? You're walking, you're in the office, you see someone who's been in the business for, let's say, a year, 18 months, they've made a couple sales, and you sort of either know or are feeling that they need that kick in the, you grab them, you bring them into one of the meeting rooms, you've got a minute to impart some wisdom to them. What do you say to this person?
This is your way of telling me I have 1 minute. Well, you know what? Right now, what I would say is, this is not a huge deal, what we're going through right now. I know the media's got a ton of headlines going on. I know that in terms of your experience, it seems like we're in huge swells and high seas. It's not. The reality is that we're in a car that's been driving 120 miles an hour that's slowed down to 60. Okay, that feels pretty slow. That feels like you're standing. Not that I've been in a car that does, but the reality is, try and step out of that car and see how well that works for you. Right. Vancouver right now, it's slow. Really? Because we could probably point to a couple hundred markets around North America that would love to be slow like we're slow. Right. So let's keep it in perspective. We also always have room for improvements personally. So have we really been applying ourselves, or have we been kind of soft because the game's been easy? Right. So maybe you got to hit the gym a little bit. I do. But, you got to up your game a little bit. You got to be a little more focused. You got to be a little more intent. The competition for those listings and those buyers is going to be more intense. So you got to return those calls a little bit quicker. You got to provide a little more service. You can't just drop the ball, because, there was a time when people would phone realtors and, you guys are all so busy, I understand. Now you should want my business. Right? The dynamics change. Right. So, don't make too much of it in your own mind, but on the other hand, treat it seriously and know what the market conditions are, and know that this actually is when you can make your gains on your competitors. Because if they keep plugging away at the same speed, this is the time when you can accelerate a little bit and you can pick up some share on those people. Well said. Darryl, I appreciate your time. Thank you. Pleasure. Now, again, this being my first... God only knows what that says on the side. I know. We'll figure that out in a bit. But speaking of figuring out, I don't know how to end this without walking up to the thing and doing it. So, well, I'm going to chair with rollers, so I'm just going to slide out. Just thanks. Thanks, Facebook. There's my finger.
I'll give them the finger.